There is a version of me that still lives in that house. Not spiritually, literally. Somewhere in a parallel second that keeps playing itself over and over, I'm still there, standing in that hallway, bare feet on cold wood, heart beating so hard I can hear it in my teeth. I was 12 years old, and I learned something that night that no one teaches you in school. Fear doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock. It's already inside. It's been inside. And the worst part? Most of the time, it's wearing the face of someone you love. This is not a ghost story. This is worse. This is a story about a man I spent 20 years trying not to become, and the moment I realized I already had. His name was Samuel. That's not his real name, but it doesn't matter. Real names are for people who've earned the right to be known, and Samuel spent his life making sure no one knew him. He was my neighbor for 11 years, lived in the house at the end of the cul-de-sac, the one with the bougainvillea so thick it bent the fence, the one where the porch light never turned on. Every morning at 5:47 he'd walk to his car. Same jacket, even in July. Same shuffle, same way of looking at the ground like the sky owed him something. I was a kid. Kids notice things adults stop seeing. I noticed that Samuel never had visitors. I noticed that his mailbox would fill up until it couldn't close. I noticed that sometimes, late at night, I'd hear his garage door open and close, open and close, open and close, like he was checking something, or checking that something was still there. My mother used to say, "That man has demons." She meant it as a joke, the way people say things to make the uncomfortable feel ordinary. But she wasn't wrong. The thing is, when you grow up next to fear that lives in a body, you start to think fear lives in houses, in places, in the dark. So you spend your whole life trying to build enough light, enough noise, enough distraction. You get the job, the apartment, the relationship. You fill the rooms.
Until one day you're standing in your own hallway, bare feet, cold wood, heart in your teeth. And you realize you've been Samuel for years. You just dressed it better. Let me tell you about the thing that broke me. Not dramatically, not with sirens and tears, but the thing that cracked the floor I'd been standing on. I was 34. I had a job that paid the bills, a girlfriend who loved me more than I deserved, a routine so tightly wound that there was no room left for anything unexpected. That was the point of the routine. It was armor. One Tuesday, nothing special about the Tuesday, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. That was also part of the routine. But that night, lying in bed, I listened to it. It was a woman's voice, older, tired. She said my father's name. She said he'd been found. She said if I wanted to know more, I should call back. I hadn't spoken to my father in 16 years. Not because of one big fight, because of 1,000 small disappearances. A man who was there, then wasn't. Who lived in the same house, but never in the same room. Who ate dinner in silence while my mother talked to fill the space. Who one day just stopped pretending. The fear I learned from Samuel wasn't Samuel's fear. It was my father's. And I had spent my entire adult life building a fortress against becoming him, against the silence, against the distance, against the way he could sit in a room full of people and be completely, utterly gone. But here's the thing about building a fortress. You don't keep things out. You lock yourself in. I didn't call back for 3 weeks. Every day, the voicemail sat in my phone. Every night, I'd open it, listen to the first 3 seconds, and close it. My girlfriend, her name was Nina, she noticed. Of course she noticed. She said, "What's in your head these days?" And I said nothing. That was a lie, but it was the kind of lie you tell when you don't have the words for the truth. When the truth is too shapeless to hold. When the fear isn't a monster with teeth. It's just a quiet room where no one speaks. Finally, on a Sunday afternoon, I called back.
The woman, her name was Margaret, said my father had been living in a motel on the edge of a town I'd never heard of. She said he'd been there for 6 years. She said he didn't talk much, but he talked about me. She said he was sick, not the kind you come back from. And she said, this is the part that undid me. She said, he keeps a photograph in his wallet. It's you, about 8 years old. You're holding a fish. He says it's the only time he remembers being happy. I didn't remember the fish. I remembered the day. I remembered my mother's hands on my shoulders. I remembered the smell of the lake. I remembered driving home in silence. But I didn't remember him being happy. Maybe I wasn't old enough to recognize it. Or maybe I'd spent so many years rewriting him into a single shape, cold, absent, unreachable, that I'd erased everything that didn't fit. That's what fear does. It simplifies. It turns people into ideas. It makes the father into a warning, the neighbor into a prophecy. It says, look, see? This is what happens. This is what you'll become. Run. So I ran. For 20 years. And now here was a woman on the phone, telling me that the man I'd been running from had been sitting in a motel room, holding a photograph of me, waiting for a call I was too afraid to make.
I drove to see him. 12 hours. I didn't tell Nina. I didn't tell anyone. I just got in the car and drove. The motel was the kind of place where time goes to stop. Faded curtains. A sign with half the letters missing. A parking lot with one car that hadn't moved in years. Room 14. I stood outside the door for 40 minutes. And in those 40 minutes, I realized something I'd never understood before. Fear isn't the thing you're running from. Fear is the running. It's the distance. It's the silence you build between yourself and the moment you don't want to face. It's the career you take to avoid the question. It's the relationship you stay in because leaving would mean admitting you chose wrong. It's the routine that keeps you from ever having to ask, what am I so afraid of? I knocked. He opened the door. And he wasn't the man I'd been running from. He was old, thin, his hands shook. He was wearing a shirt that was too big for him, and when he saw me, he didn't say anything. He just stepped aside, like he'd been practicing that movement for years, like he'd opened that door 1,000 times in his head. I sat on the edge of the bed. He sat in a chair by the window. We didn't talk for a long time. And in that silence, the silence I'd spent my whole life terrified of, something happened. It wasn't empty. It was full. Full of everything we'd never said. Full of every year we'd lost. Full of the weight of a man who didn't know how to love the way the world wanted him to. So he loved the only way he knew how. By leaving, so no one would have to watch him fail. He wasn't cold. He was terrified. He was Samuel. He was every man who grows up being told that strength means silence, that presence means performance, that the only way to protect the people you love is to keep them at a distance where they can't see you break. And I was him. Not because I'd inherited some genetic curse, but because I'd taken his silence and built a whole life out of it. A life that looked nothing like his on the outside and felt exactly the same on the inside. I stayed 3 days. We didn't fix anything. There's no fixing 40 years of silence in 3 days. But I held his hand. I watched him sleep. I found the photograph in his wallet. Creased. Faded. The fish I'd forgotten. And I put it back. When I left, he was standing in the doorway. Same pose as the first day, but different. He said, "I'm sorry I didn't know how." And I said, "Me too."
He died 4 months later. I wasn't there. But I'd already been there. The first time. The only time that mattered. Here's what I learned. Standing in that motel room, watching a man who'd spent his whole life running finally stop. Fear is not the thing that will destroy you. The running is. The avoiding. The delaying. The I'll deal with it tomorrow. The it's not that bad. He'll call me first. She knows how I feel. There's time. There is never enough time. But there is always enough time to stop running. Not to fix everything. Not to erase the years. Not to undo the choices that brought you to this moment. But to stand still. To knock on the door. To sit in the silence and realize that the thing you were most afraid of, the confrontation, the conversation, the admission, was never the monster. The monster was the years you spent convincing yourself you had to face it alone. Think about your own life for a moment. Who are you not calling? What are you not saying? What door are you standing in front of? Telling yourself you'll knock tomorrow.
The fear is real. I'm not going to tell you it's not. But the fear is not the door. The fear is the hallway you've been standing in since you were 12 years old. And you can stay there. You can keep building the routine, the job, the life that looks right from the outside. You can keep telling yourself that distance is protection. Or you can knock and find out that the person on the other side has been waiting to let you in. If this story hit something in you, share it in the comments. Not the polished version, the real one, the thing you've been holding. Subscribe if you want more stories that don't lie to you. I'll be back with another one. Until then,